Big news for F-16 pilots. The U.S. Air Force is rolling out spatial audio in cockpits. And this is a game changer, guys, for safety and performance. I mean, with spatial audio, pilots are going to be able to respond up to 1.5 seconds quicker to alerts. That may not sound like much, but in a fighter jet, that could be a pretty big difference, right? The difference between whew and which, yeah, who knows? But for those of you who understand how this tech is working, it's separating the audio sources, like voices from wingmen or air traffic control, so pilots know who's talking, where it's coming from. There's less confusion. Active noise reduction is cutting out background roar, really kind of letting pilots focus on the sounds that matter. And then spatial audio is pinpointing the exact direction of threats, navigational signals, giving pilots laser sharp situational awareness. I mean, it's not just about fancy tech, which it is fancy. It's about saving lives, boosting performance, making sure pilots have every advantage in high stakes missions. It's
I like how we just defined the time difference between and whew is 1.5 seconds. I mean, that's what we learned.
Yep. Now we know.
And speaking of time, we're looking at just a 2-year process to upgrade the entire fleet of X-16s with this spatial audio technology. And, you know, the 3D audio, I think one of the cool things about this is how it basically, by separating those sounds, it also gives it the location where you hear it coming from the right direction, so to speak. So, you know, if you know the tower's that way, you hear it coming from there. If you know your other pilots are over here. So it kind of helps with that, the brain know where these things are coming from, where the signals are coming from in space. And that's really cool. The thing for me, though, is we have software that is basically, in software and hardware, that have to prioritize crucial alerts, dampen secondary noises, figure out where these things are coming from, put them in the right spatial place for the audio processing. And all this has to be done in real time. And the interpretation has to be done in real time. So for me, it's figuring out the quality and the accuracy of how do you make that happen in real time and be correct. Because if a pilot is used to now the spatial location of the sound and it comes from the wrong place, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
I thought you were going with me on that one. And that little run up you gave there, I thought we were going to be in sync. I mean, I think QC, quality control, is critical, but the real challenge for me is seamless integration. You can test all you want, but if this tech doesn't actually integrate smoothly with existing avionics, the cockpit is just going to be complete chaos. You're going to hear frigging noises all over the place. If that's how spatial audio works, it does according to my headset anyway. Anyway, pilots rely on a unified system, not a kind of a patchwork quilt of half talking components. So for me, it's that systems integration that's going to keep that upgrade from becoming what could ultimately be a downgrade.
I mean, you said we were kind of close in line. I feel we're probably about 1.5 seconds off from alignment here. Because, you know, I think you're right that you've got to have this integration, but how do you ensure that the integration is going to work? How do you ensure that what I'm talking about of the real-time processing and prioritizing the signals and processing of where those come from, it's a software challenge for both of these, and it has to be rigorously tested. Rigorously, I could speak, that word, tested well, because you can't have this fail. You cannot have this fail when 1.5 seconds is on the line.
True. And I agree, testing's great for quality control, but you can't test chaos into clarity without, again, seamless integration. You're basically asking pilots to juggle, kind of, you're up there with a few flaming chainsaws in the middle of a dogfight. It's systems integration. You've got to make sure that everything is talking to each other harmoniously so that pilots get clear, actionable alerts instead of this kind of symphony, if you will, of mixed signals out there. So no integration, you've got no pilot trust.
But how do you know if your integration works? It's because you tested it.
Because it's freaking chaos if it doesn't.
But how do you know before it gets there, right? Like, you've got to do your quality control, your quality checking. You've got to do all of that to make sure that both your integration and what's actually happening work.
Yeah. Let's go a little bit up the process. How do we solve this? I think we start with the requirements gathering, traceability. So you've got your you've got a number one, we'd be capturing pilot requirements to align spatial as well, audio capabilities with real world operational needs. Then you're going to move it into design and change. You've got to collaborate with the terma, as I think you called it. That's anyway, first time I've heard it, but terma it is, and your avionics providers to make sure that the design interoperability across of your systems is there. Then you're going to look at product validation. Then you've got your testing coming in. So conducting end-to-end simulations of cockpit operations. And then lastly, feed it back through feedback loops, etc.
You know, it warms my soul. It's cold here in Denver, but it warms my soul to see you two arguing again. I'm very happy about it. SpaceX.
Before the show started, before Andrew joined, Greg was telling me there's like some island in Scotland where they used to send people who were arguing, and they had to stay there until they didn't argue anymore and got off. So Greg wants to like have us do the show there, which requires whiskey and arguing.
Yeah.
I actually, the way you were describing it, I was going to say that's Glasgow on a Friday night all the time, but actually then you said they kind of made up at the end of it. So that's not Glasgow. Yeah.
It's not Glasgow. Yeah.
See you next week.